Hey everybody, what is going on? I am Maximus Rex. Once again, this is Big Baby Reviews. Today is Tuesday and it is Sam Kieth Day, so I've gone as far back in my collection as I can to find the earliest issue of Sam Kieth artwork that I own, and I came up with this, Aliens Earth War, issue 1 of 4. This was published by Dark Horse Comics in 1990. Dark Horse were very much known for their movie license comics. I read a bunch of them back in the day. I read The Terminator, The Predator. Batman Predator was really cool. That was obviously a crossover. But they really did, I think, put out some really good quality comic books that, use the movies the license was based off as kind of a stepping stone and starting point to tell, other interesting stories. And obviously these are not PG, so, you can get some of that actual violence and gore that you get in the actual Alien and Aliens movies that had come out at this time. So this story does feel like it's just kind of, the storyline is branching off from Aliens by James Cameron. So if you've seen that movie, you'll kind of be in context here of what's going on in the story. From what I can ascertain, as you know, I don't focus too much on the story, mostly on the artwork when I do these reviews. Ripley is in here. She's actually come back and found, I believe her name was Newt, or the young girl character from Aliens who's grown up now. So you'll see her in here as well. Fairly recognizable. If you've seen the movies, right? The characters, even though Sam Kieth is not necessarily the best at likenesses, it's pretty easy to figure out from the hair, mostly. He does the hair really well for some strange reason, and they're recognizable just basically from that. So the artwork we're going to see here is kind of, I don't want to call it Proto Sam Kieth. He's pretty much fully formed here. This is maybe a little bit after he did those early Sandman issues. So you'll see a lot of Sam Kieth isms. I would say that maybe before, he got into Marvel Comics Presents and the Max, and he kind of started really exaggerating his style. It was a little more pulled back, toned down, but you'll definitely see some of that in here. The line work is generally a little bit cleaner than what we see later from Sam Kieth. And I would say that, the Bernie Wrightson influence is maybe a little more obvious here and there. I'll point that out as we go through the book. And also, going through this, I do kind of now see the Corbin influence that I've heard Sam Kieth has and people have mentioned. I see it a little bit more in this book for some reason. So we're going to quickly talk about the cover by John Bolton, not by Sam Kieth, but, great kind of somewhat photorealistic alien a monster here. Pretty good to start off the issue. Let's crack her open and look at some Sam Kieth artwork. So Mark I don't know how to say that, Verheiden. That makes sense, like Verhoeven, right? The guy who directed RoboCop, Verheiden. I'm going to assume that's how you say that. He's the writer. Sam Kieth is the artist. So that would be pencil and ink, I guess. Jim Massara, the letterer, and Monica Livingston is the colorist. So right away, right, this top panel here, if you know about Sam Kieth, you got some Sam Kieth isms here, right? The kind of angled kind of buildings, twisted, slightly tilted here and there, and these kind of decorative elements using the aliens kind of heads and face huggers here to create the panel. You'll see him do kind of more extreme versions of this later on in the Max and in Marvel Comics Presents. These feathers and stuff that he's added here that don't necessarily, all this stuff here doesn't relate to the aliens kind of lore and faces, but just more textural work he's used here to create that interesting designy border panel. Sam Kieth obviously is someone you'll notice as we go through this book who really, I think, doesn't like the grid, so he really works hard at creating interesting storytelling and panel layouts, right? And this is what I mean about this style being a little bit cleaner, a little more fine, or refined Sam Kieth, right, in his line work. You can see here, he's using hatching and pointillism, and I think that's how you say that, all over the place, right? He's really using a lot of different textures here. You got some more pointillism here, right? And slowly, though, he's used some white medium here to do the opposite of what he's... So here he's adding black on white, and here he's adding white on black, right? So you're starting to see Sam Kieth branch out and just get a little messier, and as time moves on, he would get very messy, which I enjoy too. So this is still very familiar Sam Kieth kind of shading and stuff and finish, but that's where I think you see a little bit more, at least in these early Alien issues, the Bernie Wrightson influence. And there's a great killer shot of the alien, which I think is, unfortunately kind of lessened a little bit by the coloring. Not that the coloring's pretty good overall. I get that the alien's always in the dark and stuff, but I do feel like, this blue here is maybe just a little too dark, and kind of obscures the figure a bit too much. But I get they wanted to keep it dark in the shadows and stuff. Just doesn't quite work for me. I feel if it was just a little bit lighter, then all those details would come out more. They did put a bit of, light highlights here, but this blue just, it's a little too close to the black. So again, Sam Keith can get so interesting here with the shadow and the texture work. Like I don't know how you draw something like this. Like I don't know if I could. It's very abstract really when you look at it, but we totally get that it's, the figure of the female here with the shadow from the grate. Another great job of using it here as well. Another interesting panel. And, Sam Keith, I think, kind of is using the frame. When you watch the Alien movie or Aliens, these people stuck in the walls and stuff, if you've seen the movie, are almost used as framing devices on, the camera, rather on the cinema screen, right? Or on your TV screen when you're watching it. It almost frames what you're seeing on the screen. He's kind of using that same effect here in a comic book, right? Here's where I see a lot of Bernie Wrightson influence, right? And here's where I see a lot of Sam Keith, right? Kind of more abstract and cartoony and brutal. So this is a retelling of the movie, basically, Aliens. And this is where we see Newt and Ripley. And as I said, the hairstyle is about right, but everything else is kind of, the likeness isn't there. You have to know that that's Ripley to know that that's Ripley. But again, look at these interesting, page layouts and designs that, he would push even more when he got to the Max, right? But you can see it kind of starting here, and he spends a lot of time on, maybe something like this and some of the finer images. And then there's others where I feel he just, this is a direction he would go in where it's a little faster and a little dirtier, right? This is very Sam Keith. He's using a lot of pointillism that eventually would become more hatching like he's doing here, right? He kind of drops off on this stuff and stops doing it. Obviously doing something like this, if you know how it's done, right, with the pen or the pencil, whatever, just lots of little dots, very time consuming. So where he really excels generally is in the textural work, right? I don't know exactly how this effect was created. I feel like it was done in the, actual drawing and the pen and ink of it, but I could be wrong. It would be easy to just throw a screen tone, I guess, on top of some artwork to make it look like that. But I love the effect. It's really well done here. It does remind me also of when you watch the Alien movie and they see footage, off one of those like little green cameras and stuff. You get those lines. It kind of mirrors that from the movie. So these, not so interesting in that this is mostly a bit of storytelling, a lot of conversation, a lot of setup, obviously, because it's an issue 1. So, we're not really getting into the nitty gritty of Sam Keith just yet, or the more interesting stuff, but we are getting, some typical Sam Keith faces here. I've seen him draw this kind of face before, and we're going to start to see when he draws the women, you've probably heard of this, he likes to add the paunch. He likes women with like a little bit of a belly, which becomes a Sam Keith staple, you'll notice. He's got stills from the movie, I guess, because everything's fairly accurate when it comes to the ships. And I remember this vehicle from Aliens as well, right? Yeah, this image here, super awesome. Love the way he integrates the shading, right? Cartoonier faces down here, kind of a Sam Keith staple. I really like there's so much texture here. I don't know how well the camera's picking this up, but when they reach, and they finally see the interior of the ship, I always thought it almost looks like, I gotta be honest, either the inside of like someone's throat or like a vaginal canal or something. If you know anything about Geiger, if this is a vaginal canal to get in and that's part of the ship there, that's probably based on a cock, right? Again, if you know Geiger, lots of penises and vaginas in his stuff, lots of inspiration coming from genitals when he's designing things. So you'll see them all over the place when you look at his stuff. And these are his designs, Geiger's designs, right? He designed the alien creature and all that. I mean, the alien itself has basically a big penis head. So again, love these kind of. I see a motif here where he you know, he'll use a circle, and then some other panels. He's done it a whole bunch of times. This issue, right? If I can go back real quick, here's kind of a circle motif here. I saw it somewhere else right here, right? So I guess he comes back to this a lot because it is reminiscent. I remember in the Max him using that as well. So like we're not far off. A lot of this, you know, looks like, again, fully formed Sam Kieth. It's just more in the finish that it'll get a lot grittier and dirtier as we move ahead. Start looking more kind of like this stuff, I guess, is a good example. You know, some of the splatter here that's more controlled in this issue, that'll become a little more chaotic as time moves on. I listened to a Kelly Jones interview, and he was talking, because they worked together for a while, at least kind of, you know, in the same studio or as friends. And he was explaining how, you know, he really appreciated that Sam Kieth would attack a page, right? And like not be afraid to just throw a big splotch of black ink on it and then decide no, and then put white on top of it, cut stuff out. There's Sam Kieth pages where the black on the page is basically him using black electrical tape, because I guess it was faster or something. Like it helped him to find the panel borders. Like he'll try some very interesting stuff. I bet you his pages are not like flat. You know, I'm sure there's a lot of texture and stuff on it. They probably take a bit of space. Interesting color hold here. Not quite sure what they're going for. I guess that's the Alien Queen. I think it's maybe a little too obscure for it to be obvious. But I guess if you've seen the movie, you would know that that's what's going on here. This shot of the alien, the mouth, whatever that thing inside his mouth is, the extra little alien bit, busting through this guy's head here. Like, what a great shot. That's some great stuff right there. You know, and pulled off in a very Sam Kieth manner with the layout, the designs. There's that circle again. He loves it. And the bits of brains and stuff flying out. Like, that's great. If you turn your head here, you'll see a super cool alien shot. I do think Sam Kieth is has all the right skills to be drawing a cool looking alien. Kelly Jones as well, right? They do have similarities in their styles. I don't want to say they have a similar style, but they kind of come from that same Bernie Wrightson school. This here, there's just the inking again kind of throws me off, even though this is reminiscent of the way Sam Kieth would do a lot of Wolverine's arm hair. But this shot here reminds me of this cover he did where Cable's kind of basically almost in the same position. And I swiped the hell out of that shot. I used it a bunch of times when I was a kid drawing. Lots of use of heavy shadows, right? That's a Sam Kieth staple as well. Now, when we get to this here in this explosion, there's just something like, I don't have anything per se that I don't like about this image. It works, right? But it just seems off with the rest of the artwork. It doesn't seem to match, right? It seems to come out of nowhere from like a different cartoonier comic. It's almost like more Von Baudet here style, you know, is how I describe it, as opposed to the more, you know, illustrative, lush line work that we're seeing, the Bernie Wrightson kind of stuff. So this kind of just is a little bit jarring. Like I said, not that on its own I think it's a bad image. It works, and it's getting its point across of this explosion. But it just feels a little odd compared to the level of drawing everywhere else. Maybe like it's not in sync with the rest of the art. And here we are on our last page, and, you know, he does give us one last cool kind of, you know, 90s shot here of a guy with big guns. I assume that trend had started at this point, right? I don't know if Cable was probably out by this point too, so, you know, I'm getting a bit of Cable vibes here from this character, and I love, like I said, this kind of extra level of spray and dirtiness he added. We're starting to see, and the textures on the gun here, we're starting to see, you know, where Sam Kieth is going. His structure and everything is sound. It's just his finish that's going to get a little rougher, but in a cool way. And I say that, rougher in some areas and even more refined and detailed in others with his hatching and stuff. But yeah, definitely a sign of great things to come from Sam Kieth. You know, had I bought this back in the day before I knew about him, I'm pretty sure I would have enjoyed this comic as well. And there you go. We got some ads. It's kind of a snapshot of Dark Horse Comics in around this time. 1990. And I always thought this was interesting when we see kind of the original movie Alien design. It kind of had like a human skull part here. Funny enough, if you guys look online, there's an ad from 1979 when the Alien movie had come out. They had designed a toy for kids, which is kind of hilarious. When you've seen the movie, I don't think it is for kids, but you know, they did it for RoboCop as well in the 80s. So, you know, I don't understand marketers, but that's sometimes they take adult properties and try to sell them to kids. And obviously tone them down quite a lot. But if you look up 1979 Aliens toy, you'll see that I guess they got this design, the toy makers or toy designers, right, from the movie studio, and they started producing the figures. And by the time the movie came out, they realized they had changed the front part here in the design to just be all dark. Probably too late. They'd already mass produced these toys, and so when you see the Alien toy from 1979, it's got the skull. Human skull kind of thing in the front of its head.
Like, subscribe, like, subscribe.
King Comics presents Big Baby Volume 1, issues 1 to 13, 204 pages of story and art. King Comics also presents Star Crasher one shot, 32 pages. Cosmic sci-fi surrealist adventure. You can find these fine comics at kingcomics.ca, at MaximusRex13 on Instagram, or on Facebook, MaxRex or Big Baby.